The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Welcome to today's webinar entitled APPA Operational Guidelines for Educational Facilities Maintenance. My name's Billy Zadig, Manager of Special Projects for APPA. Just a couple of housekeeping items before we get started. The webinar recording will be posted to the APPA website later this afternoon. Please visit the APPA website for archived webinars that are available to everyone for continuing education credits recognized by local, state, and federal professional entities. The Professional Continuing Education and AIA CLU certificates are being offered for today's program. If you are an AIA professional, please send an email to me at billy@appa.org along with your AIA membership number if you have not done so in the past. Those who indicated they wanted a certificate at registration and meet the requirements will receive certificates later this afternoon. All attendees are in listen-only mode. Please type your questions in the chat box and they will be answered in the order they are received. If we run out of time and we still have questions, responses will be sent directly to the person asking the question by one of our presenters. If you're just calling in, make sure to send me an email at billy@appa.org so I can send you a certificate if you would like one. The system only recognizes you if you log in. At this time, it's my pleasure to turn this over to Ted Widener and Tom Becker. Ted, take it away.
Good morning or good afternoon, whatever your time zone is. We're here to talk about the update to APPA's staffing guidelines. Again, my name is Ted Widener. I am a professor of practice at Purdue University. Tom?
Hi, I'm Tom Becker. I'm happy to join Ted here today. Ted was the chair of this edition. I chaired the last one. My role in this set of trilogy was the editor-in-chief for the three trilogy guidelines, which are custodial, grounds, and maintenance. So Ted championed this book. I'm happy to help him. I've had 31 years in facilities, in higher ed facilities. We shared the roles on the credentialing board together, and it was a pleasure to help with this edition as well. Go ahead, Ted.
All right. So just reviewing what Billy already mentioned, the AIA credit is available, and this course is really going to address the challenges that folks have with maintenance of colleges and universities and how APPA is helping with its guidelines. And we'll go into some of the details. Our learning objectives are going to be looking at building maintenance best practices and innovative ways of managing facility assets. We'll talk about how we have determined staffing recommendations based on as unbiased information as we've been able to receive. We'll describe different sustainable initiatives that your organization might undertake to make maintenance of your facilities more environmentally and financially sustainable. We'll talk about effective techniques to mentor and lead your employees to perform better. And we'll also talk about improving or creating a path to improvement for your institutional goals and budgetary resources. The operational guidelines continue to use the 5 levels of service that we created over 20 years ago when the first guideline was developed. We've increased material on sustainability, and it continues to be an integral part of building maintenance to achieve objectives. We've integrated technology, including GPS, GIS, and whether you call it CMMS or IWMS, taking advantage of technology to maintain your campus better. We continue to look at using benchmarking for recommendations. We've introduced a couple new standards and helped you identify ways you can develop your own standards. And then we've developed some coordinated common administrative staffing recommendations. Some of the important things to recognize in the guidelines are that we're making heavy use of APPA's facility performance indicators wherever possible. We've also got links to APPA's total cost of ownership standard, which should help you understand how to utilize the TCO standard as well. We've introduced some new best practices related to reliability and to the ISO standard 41001, a facility management suite of standards, but in particular, the management system standard that's identified by that ISO standard. We've got some good case studies, and one of the exciting things about this edition is that it's in color, so it really helps with some of the illustrations. Tom and I are very thankful that Steve Glaser and Anita Dosick have been able to help us with both surveys and identifying ways of improving the book this year. And so saying the book and in color, there it is. You'll be able to get it. We'll give you more information about how to get the book either electronically or in a paper version later on. Participants or contributors to this edition, Matt Adams, who passed away about 1.5 years ago, but he started us off again with his contributions, Tom's contributions, and then folks from all over the United States, Lalette Agarwal, who left the University of Nebraska and is now working for a private company, Eric Backus, led a team talking about technology, Bob Beckstrom, Melissa Bergeron, Thomas Coombs, Robert Fleming, Marcus Hogue, Jim Jackson, Doug Litweiler has given us a new chapter, Mark Notaro, Jacob Olson, Kim Pachuta, Rick Pretzman, Ed Sampe, Patricia Smith, and Anthony Van Dyke. All of these people did a wonderful job helping us improve the guidelines and introduce some new material. For a little bit of background, in 2018, APPA conducted a survey of members to identify opportunities to improve all 3 volumes of the operational guidelines. And what we learned was that while the maintenance guideline was not used by everyone, we got 71% of the respondents giving us some good feedback on what they wanted to see. Among other things, they wanted to see good use of technical information, and they enjoyed it. And so we wanted to build on that. The respondents also identified use of the narrative information, which is also important as we try to explain to people what maintenance is and how it's best delivered. And a large number of people use the guideline to determine staffing levels and to identify how their staffing levels compare against the narrative performance issues that we'll talk about. But there is a continuing challenge for all of us in maintenance. Change is the only constant that we see. We're seeing shrinking enrollments, we're seeing advancements in technology. There's good news on the remote sensing and data device front. There's the development of international standards for the delivery of facility services, but there's also an increasing environmental awareness of how the maintenance of facilities protect the health and safety of others, particularly after this pandemic. There's always demands and higher expectations applied to all of us. And then budgets and resources are getting harder to identify. In this edition, our goal has been to continue to provide a how-to approach for high-level maintenance service delivery. And we've also taken advantage of APPA's growing online terms and definitions rather than provide a large glossary in the book. We're using it as a basic guide for continuous improvement for facility services, and we've given you a few methods of how to do that improvement effort. And we've taken advantage of our original authors and some new ones who have updated and added new material. But this guideline continues to be a how-to, and it means that we needed to have experienced professionals who know what they're doing to give us the good information that exists, because we have powerful content and we have some terrific guidelines. So a brief summary of what's in the book. We've got a basic or a general description that focuses in on TCO and how that works with building maintenance. We've updated the description of maintenance levels, clarified a few things, updated our case studies with examples. We've developed, have additional developed detail about the zero-based staffing buildup, if that's the approach that you prefer to take. We've done a detailed statistical analysis of data that was available to us, both through the FPI and through some large university databases. Our staffing information has improved with much better explanations and really identifies a great path of moving forward to improve your staff continuously. We've got updated adjustments for the auxiliary and K-12 areas, ways of understanding how to deviate from the guidelines for special groups of people. We've updated contracting and partnership information. We have a separate chapter on proactive maintenance and how to really get control on your maintenance by getting ahead of it. In addition, we have a separate chapter on reliability-based maintenance for those folks who have moved to that level of service delivery. We've got a very extensive chapter on information systems and how you integrate your information systems across the whole campus and the maintenance operations. We've got a separate chapter on customer satisfaction, compliance and safety, which is always important. We've pulled out sustainability so that you can see that better. We have a brand new chapter on turnover work group practices. How does the maintenance organization receive a new facility? An extremely important topic. And then because we were working on this project during the pandemic, we took advantage of the situation, and Tom has written a very nice chapter on operations during a crisis. In this edition, we have an updated chart of staffing levels, and I'll go into those details and what those changes have been. They are somewhat significant for some folks. But in the meantime, Tom is going to talk about how to take advantage of our 13 levels of service measurements, service delivery, and show you how he plots a typical institution and how he can use that to set a new direction.
Okay, so when we sent out our survey, about 77% of our respondents were interested in how the guideline could help them set service levels and develop a common understanding with their customers about the types of service that are expected from the facility's operation. APPA has taken the time to break down the maintenance delivery into essentially 13 attributes or so forth, and goes across 5 levels of service, from crisis response, which is having little to no capability in that attribute all the way up to showplace facility and a showpiece facility. Now, the easiest way to do this is, is to try to quantify subjectivity, is to just read the descriptors that are in the manual and plot where your institution stands. So if you read the descriptor and you say, well, here's about where we think we are, and put a dot there. It's best to do this with a team of people, including your customers, so that you get a good idea from feedback and so forth about where you think you stand. And then just connect the dots. So after you can sort of draw a line between these dots. In this case, we're comparing two campuses, and they're very much aligned. One is moving forward, and over time, we've been plotting this over time, and with our goal is at the institution that I have served, is that we guarantee a maintenance care level of facilities, and we aspire to be to have comprehensive stewardship. So we're looking to migrate the attributes in that way. Now, part of that is, do you have the resources to do that? And one of the things that we have here towards the bottom is, how are you funded, and the percent of funding that you get compared to the value of your plan. So if it's hard to operate, 2 levels above that. It takes a lot of concentration to do that. So let's just go over into the next slide if we can. So this is just a little bit more detailed about some of the attributes, and so you can see it in the writing that's in the book. And then let's go through it and talk about how to calculate it. So part of it is to set the next slide's fine.
Okay.
Part of it is to talk about what you're going to deliver, or talk with your customers about the service level that you hope to attain. And then, the next part is how to plot where you really stand. So it's interesting, in the lower scores, the better. It's with the highest, 1 is the highest and 5 is the lowest. So the math sometimes gets a little counterintuitive. But let's go through it. I think the slide will pop. So all you're really doing is adding the values of the cells. So if you go through the 13 values for each campus, divide by 13. So if you take campus 1, when you added those scores up, divided by 13, it was around a 2.18. Campus 2 was about a 3.03. In this case, we wanted to show this 2 campuses, and you prorate that by the gross square footage of those campuses. So campus 1 was about 1.5 million. Campus 2 is about 2.2 million. Prorated comes out overall for the university about a 2.68 level of service. So we're in the middle of our intentions. We're above a managed care level, and we're striving towards that comprehensive stewardship level. And you plot that over time, and you'll see your progress. No one typically is all in one column. Most universities do well in some columns, and not in maybe a plus or minus a little bit in the other columns. But that's how you calculate your service level and establish your service level with your customers.
Okay, thanks, Tom. That's a great way to look at subjective information and turn it into quantitative information. And so a lot of folks are interested in what the generic staffing guidelines really look like. And again, I want to emphasize that we used FPI data, so real data reported to APPA, and the projected service levels calculated maybe the same way that Tom just described them. Plus, we also used a detailed analysis of work order data from several institutions, looking at what they said their staffing level was, how much time they were spending on different work assignments, and plotted that as well. And so our new numbers look like this. So the old numbers appear in black, and you'll notice for classrooms, laboratories, and office administration, we've dropped the numbers, in some cases significantly. And the only place where the numbers went up was in residential space. Some folks may be challenged by this, but we think it reflects the reality of what all APPA members have been doing over the last 10 years since the previous edition in dealing with limited resources, higher expectations of customer demand. Now, we're not telling you exactly how you deal with these changes in staffing, but this is what we're seeing based on empirical information that we've gotten from several hundred institutions. So let's see how this gets applied at a relatively high level. So if you consider a residential university campus that's got around 2 million gross square feet in 32 buildings and the desire to provide a service level of 2, some additional data will be the average age of the buildings, 29. So that's the average age of, well, the age of the building since it was last completely renovated. If it's built brand new, that's easy. But if it went through a major renovation, then you have to make some adjustments. And then the campus is not in the greatest of shape. It's got an FCI facility condition index of 20. So that really says there's a lot of backlog capital renewal work to do. We're going to focus on, again, on level 2. So the numbers in the staffing table have been reflected there. And we had to break down the campus space based on the information that we had available. So classroom space, laboratory space, administrative and office space, and residential space. For those of you who don't have detailed information about the campus space, our simple recommendation is to look at the building, say what its predominant use might be, classroom, laboratory, office, or residential, and then get the total gross square footage of that facility and put it into the matrix. So our initial calculation works out to be the need for around 30 people. Now, as we created originally in the first edition, we have to make a couple adjustments to address things like the average age of the building and the average building conditions. So there are some adjustment factors listed in the book. The average age adjustment factor says we need to increase things by 1%, staffing by 1%. And for that high FCI, we have to increase our staffing by 7%. So we adjust that number of 30.1 and we get to 32.5. So let's say 33 FTE workers are required to perform all of the building maintenance functions. All the building maintenance functions include carpentry, electrical, plumbing, HVAC, and any other support employees that you might have, such as laborers or a welder or something like that. We do not specify exactly what trade you should have. When you want to look at that in the amount of workload per employee, it works out to be roughly 62,000 gross square feet per employee. Now, some of you may say that that's a small number, and we're willing to accept that. You can make adjustments based on what you think makes sense from a different perspective using different tools that are available in the manual or in the guidelines, such as the service level delivery that Tom described earlier on. If you're achieving a higher service level and you have a lower staffing level, that's okay. As I said earlier, we've got some other important highlights we'd like to recognize in the book. There's a great chapter on staff development and how you not only integrate hiring and training in your employee development, but there's also some great sections on sustaining the organization, planning for replacements and retirees and so on, and developing your staff so they can move up the career ladder. Our chapter on auxiliaries in K-12 is updated and has some new information on what their special needs may be and how you can address them by adjusting the staffing levels. We also have information on contracting and partnerships, because not all facilities can do all of the facility maintenance work that's required with their own employees. More importantly, we've got a clear chapter on preventive maintenance and predictive maintenance, implementation of a preventive maintenance plan, and then moving toward a predictive maintenance plan. This is real important because you know, if you can either do preventive maintenance, which is preferred, or predictive maintenance, which is better yet, you get out ahead of the problems and you potentially increase the availability of your staff so they can do other things, whether it's customer service issues or it's helping get caught up on that capital renewal problem that you might have. As mentioned before, we've got an extensive chapter on facility information systems and the importance of seeing data about your facility that's beyond just managing the task. So we're not looking at just what work has been requested today and who we assigned to do it and how long it ended up taking or how much it ended up costing. We're really talking about integrating all of the information systems on campus, taking advantage of building occupancy data, of building temperature data, and other service delivery issues, and really thinking in an integrated way of how to take care of the campus better and how to improve customer service. And speaking of customer service, we don't just focus on how and when to do it, but closing the feedback loop and making sure your customer is satisfied, and really taking the customer's ideas and integrating them into your maintenance plans. We try to keep up to date with building codes and standards. It's tricky because our book is dated or is updated about every 10 years, whereas the codes and standards are updated every 3 years on a rolling basis. But we do the best we can and have provided you with some compliance checklists. As I had mentioned earlier, we have a brand new chapter on turnover work group information. So TOW, the turnover work group, it's all about receiving a new or totally renovated facility and pulling that information in a coordinated and logical way so that you're not scrambling when the contractor says, okay, here's the keys to your new facility, good luck. Here's some dusty old manuals that we had to provide according to the architect's contract, but we don't have it very well organized, and good luck trying to figure it out. This is a whole chapter that really tells you how to take good advantage of the information that you should be getting, helps you identify the information that you should be getting so you can start day one taking care of your facility. And then Tom's new chapter on operating during a crisis really integrates other logical processes for campus service delivery. And as I mentioned before, we've integrated more with APPA's online resources and have tried to push out as much as we can into other areas of facility service delivery. Tom, do you want to talk about reliability?
Yeah, so the new chapter on reliability, the authors on that were Ed Sampe and Tom Coombs from Thomas Jefferson University, which is the university that I just recently retired from. And those fellows are really zealots into looking at maintenance in maybe a different way than a typical university might have. It comes out of a med ed environment and pharmaceutical environment type of thing, and it really uses statistics, data from predictive maintenance techniques, and so forth to start to focus your resources in the way that is going to let your university, or in particular your infrastructure, be more reliable and run more reliably. It essentially uses predictive maintenance techniques that look at or help you make the decisions about where to put your resources. It's more advanced than what we have typically done with preventive maintenance of change filters every so often and rebuild things at a certain point. It looks at measurements and statistics to help you make those decisions, and it requires some substantial training and a buy-in from the group to do that. So it goes through a step-by-step process and how to develop a program that is based on reliability as opposed to times or things like that, and goes through the critical factors. There's a chart on the next page that allows you to sort of plot where your group might be and how you want to move towards getting a program toward that is in essentially excellence. So most of us will probably find that we're in reactive or emerging mode when it comes to reliability type management. You need to have to start to get the different components to become part of the system, and then you'll move through the chart. But what we've been able to see at Thomas Jefferson is a substantial reduction in emergency breakdowns by implementing something like this without a substantial increase in cost. We're really focusing our resources in the areas that are most optimal to make sure that our place runs. And it's this is critical, especially in a med ed environment where lives depend on it. So we've been doing this now for a few years, and Ed and Tom did a great chapter on recapping where what we've done and how you can do it at your organization. That's it.
Great. Once again, we've tied in a lot of information with APPA's FPI into this standard or into the guidelines. And we've highlighted the elements in some of the graphs and tables that we presented when we were analyzing data. You should take advantage of those graphs and recognize that that's information that you would want to have to take care of your campus. And hopefully, if you're not already reporting into APPA's FPI survey, utilizing this guideline will help you see that there's advantages into reporting the FPI data and taking advantage of it. While the FPI allows you to benchmark against other institutions, and folks would want to do that early on, you really want to use FPI data or something like FPI data to benchmark against yourself and to track how you're getting better over time. Use consistent data and share it with others on campus. you'll be able to make the case that things are getting better or maybe not getting better, but take advantage of that kind of reporting system.
So this slide just superimposes a couple of data lines from my own institution to just give you an idea of what you could do with the app, with the maintenance guideline and the APPA FBI. So this chart tracks, how much you're putting back in terms of capital renewal versus your maintenance staff per gross square foot. And along the bottom line is the total maintenance in gross square foot. So what it tells you in this trend line, in this 2019 trend line, is that essentially the newer your facility is, the more your facility is renewed, the more square footage you can cover with your staff. So you can have less staff when your institution is newer, is really what it's saying. What the equipment in your institution is newer. So we took the time to plot where we stood as an institution on this graph, and we're doing capital renewal at about $3.32 per gross square foot, and our staff was at about 62,000 gross square foot per FTE, and it shows us that we're just below the trend line. We're right about where we would expect to be with that staffing and that type of capital renewal. You can do this for your own institution. Next slide, please. This is another FBI data slide that looks at tracking your own performance or your own gross square foot for maintenance FTE over time. So the 2000, this gray line goes across is the 2019 mean of 77,500 gross square feet per employee, per maintenance employee. The green line is the calculated staffing requirement for our facility, which is about 66,000 square feet per employee was the calculated staffing. So back in 2016, we were understaffed. You can see we were running over 90,000 square feet per employee. We've had some changes in building portfolio and some replacements of staff and so forth, which has allowed us to come just below the line. So we're actually slightly overstaffed, if you could believe that, for the moment. We have a number of pending retirements, including my own that was in there. So we're just below the line right now, but if you're floating between those two lines, you're running in an economical situation. You're doing a good job for your organization. So you can do this for yourself and track internally. Next slide.
Okay, so again, we took advantage of APPA's publication of APPA 1000, both the initial publication and then its follow-on guide on applying the APPA 1000 guidelines. And that's connected in with our maintenance staffing guidelines, where we look at how to provide building data to total cost of ownership applications. We talk about building maintenance and total cost of ownership concepts. And then we've also talked about how building maintenance influences building both planning and design. And in the analysis chapter, we demonstrate how an organization was able to take advantage of or take the APPA FPI information, looking at what they should be spending for total cost of ownership and their staffing, and demonstrated that as they were renewing their campus, they were also reducing the need for maintenance employees, which you'd like to say, well, of course it's only logical, but it's important to get people to understand by providing them with real accurate data. So again, the total cost of ownership, we've described how data is needed to apply the total cost of ownership. We've been linking the operations and maintenance benefits to total cost of ownership. We've attempted to try to show tools that will help you make better O&M decisions and demonstrate the need for knowledgeable designers relative to total cost of ownership and operations and maintenance, so you can improve the facility sustainment, not necessarily sustainability, which is an important factor, but sustainment, so the facility is more economical to maintain. And then lastly, we've incorporated some elements of ISO 41001, which is a management system standard. Those of you who are familiar with the quality improvement standard, ISO 9001, it's pretty much the same thing applied to facilities. It's an important way of addressing what you need on your campus. It incorporates information from a strategic sourcing of services if you outsource services. We've looked at developing a facility management strategy. There's a separate standard on that. There's a soon to be published influencing behaviors for improved outcomes by maintaining your facility the right way, and a soon to be published standard on integrating technology in facility management. All of these connect to APPA's facility management evaluation program, which is another important element of APPA's services to its members. So articulating, for those of you that want to see the details of the ISO standards, they're listed here: 41001, 41012, strategic sourcing, and so on. And there will be published in probably another year or so a guidance on emergency preparedness, mostly for pandemic response. That's moving through ISO about as fast as anything can move. And you've had APPA members participating and assisting in the development of these standards. In summary, there just isn't enough time for us to tell you everything that's in the guideline, but it's there, and hopefully it's something that you can use to the benefit of your institution. It's an important thing that helps you with some how-to information as well as some more sophisticated information. This guideline could not have been done without the initial help of Matt Adams, who about 25 years ago approached me and suggested that we work with Steve Glaser and develop a guideline for building maintenance. And so this edition is dedicated to him for his professionalism, knowledge, and friendship, which was deeply appreciated and greatly missed by all APPA members who have ever met him. So now we'll be happy to take any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Ted and Tom. We have a couple of questions here. And our first one is, how do you account for space that do not fit into any of these 4 areas?
We provide some information on specifically the different space categories that the federal government has identified and has been in use for over 50 years, and how to break that up between major areas that we've identified: classrooms, laboratories, offices, administration, and residential. And so if you have that information, you can do a crosswalk and get the information that you need to apply the matrix in the guidelines.
Okay, and then clarifying that these staffing numbers do or do not include supervisory staff.
Great question. No, they do not include supervisory staff. We're assuming a general supervision level. But no, they do not include supervisors. These are workers.
Okay. All right, our next question. Is there a software to help us with implementing or best use, or is it better to use spreadsheets?
You can develop a spreadsheet on your own. It's pretty straightforward. I know we've looked at well, there's a way of doing it for custodial. We may be able to share something through APPA that would help you apply based on different levels of information, the guidelines that we have here.
Okay.
It's something that has been kicked around a little bit. Most of us do it, simply write in Excel using the tables that are in the manual. But we've been asked about that by a number of members, and that may be something that comes out at a later time. We don't have something that'll do that right now with the onset of this guideline.
Okay, thank you. Our next question. Is there a section on the benefits and drawbacks of various types and sizes of computerized maintenance management systems?
There's a good chapter on CMMS that was rewritten by the fellows out in Nebraska and one other institution. And what it really talks about is the Internet of Things and leveraging a CMMS system into more areas than just work order control. I think you'll enjoy the chapter, and it you have to right size your CMMS system for your institution. Some of the larger institutions really need more powerful engines than some of the smaller institutions. But take a look at that chapter and see where technology is taking us.
But I would also add, this is not a how-to on selecting a CMMS. That's really a totally different area. The goal of the authors, and Eric Backus really led the effort from Clarkson, is to identify all the different ways that you can really leverage technology and information systems, and they did a really good job. You really need to figure out on your own how much information do you want to have and try to handle, and then move on from there to figure out what CMMS or integrated work management system you want to have.
Okay, thank you. Our next question. Do the maintenance numbers include administrative assistant type staff?
Again, no, that's a category outside. Now, I will say that it used to be when we first wrote the manual that we were still working with a lot of paper reports that would come back in saying this is how much time a particular worker spent on a specific task, and there might have been a billing code in there and so on. And then all of that information would have to have been transferred by administrative staff, clerks, and so on. If you take the time to really integrate your information systems, you don't need that anymore. You hand a Palm device, a smartphone, to an employee, and they record all of that information for you automatically. And so predicting how many administrative support, clerical staff are required is it's such a moving target right now, and we never really tackled that.
But one thing, Ted, just not to forget is that those of us that participate in the FBI, there is a section on administrative staffing, and you can benchmark yourself in the FBI with compare yourself to other institutions and understand if you're in the, in the first standard deviation. So there's, it may not be broken down in this manual to tell you how many administrative staff you need for the type of operation you're running, but it is available within APPA to get an understanding of what is used across the country and in your region.
Yes, thank you. That's a very good point. I need to remember to mention the FPI more frequently.
Yeah, the more of us that use it, the better that data becomes.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. Our next question. We are using the new building models, BIM, when a building is turned over to us and doing a direct import into our CMMS at substantial completion. Are others doing this?
I would say that you're definitely an outlier. You're presenting a best practice. And if you're interested in writing an article for APPA to say how you did that, I'm sure Steve Glaser would be happy to feature you.
I think it's a goal of all of us to try to have that type of integration, and talked a little bit in the TAO chapter, but it's it's an aspiration right now for most of it. A lot of that type of thing gets cut out in the project, and it doesn't make it into the maintenance system.
Okay, thank you. I'll put Steve in touch with the gentleman who asked the question. Our next question is, we have a portfolio that is heavy on smaller, older wood frame houses and buildings that are money pits, along with the more normal type of larger buildings you might expect on a campus. How would you account for the maintenance intensive portions of the portfolio in staffing guidance?
Yeah, that is a real tough issue. And here's where I'm going to recommend you deviate from the guidelines entirely, but well, not entirely, but mostly. You really need to develop a practice of a slightly different kind of preventive maintenance, or let's call it reliability maintenance. And that would be to do something that I observed for one university that had a bunch of small buildings and then a small number of large buildings. And that was, they were going around through all the important, let's say, academic areas every morning for the first hour, hour and a half of the day, identifying anything that wasn't working exactly the way it was supposed to and fixing it right away. They had a card of things of typical problems, and if they couldn't fix it right away, they would report it and it would get resolved pretty quickly. So it's making sure all the lights were working, all the elevators were working, all the window blinds were working, little things that get people ticked off. They had a good grip on maintaining their campus, and they could maintain their campus with a lot less in the way of staffing than I would have assumed or calculated. And so the real challenge for you, and I think we talk about this in the book, is figure out where your big problem areas are and start tackling those. And I think the preventive maintenance, implementing preventive maintenance chapter does the best job of explaining that for you. It's not easy, but it's always something that has to be resolved.
Okay. Our next question. Is there a section that provides a detailed overview of green buildings and LEED requirements?
Yeah, that's there's the sustainability chapter goes into LEED and a number of other rating systems. I'm not sure if the table's in there for LEED points. I don't think that it is, but I believe it gives you the links to be able to do that.
And at the very least, it's very easy to find the LEED point system. But are there different maintenance requirements for systems that are highly sustainable? Yes and no. I mean, when I look at detailed information about maintaining a chiller a standard chiller versus maintaining a highly energy efficient chiller, the amount of time necessary is virtually the same.
Okay, thank you. Our next question, how does this compare to the Whitestone data set for maintenance?
Great question. So if you look at the zero-based staffing chapter, it describes essentially how to take the Whitestone data and apply it and calculate your results. The Whitestone data is broken up into several different versions. They have some model facilities from their 2014, 2015 edition, and they also have detailed information for components that were in their database. You may have to create your own components and your own maintenance information, but you can do that.
This process requires operation of a Bluetooth device. For proper system function, a compatible Bluetooth device is required. Please visit the hands-free system website listed in the owner's manual for a list of approved devices and other system information.
Okay, all right.
I have no idea where that's coming from.
Any other questions, Billy?
Yeah, we have one more. How do you factor in paid time off, either sick, vacation, or holiday in your staff count?
The staffing numbers are based on 1,760 hours per year of employees available to work. It eliminates, it spells out how it eliminates paid time off, vacations, holidays, sick leave, that sort of thing. And you can allot training. If your numbers are any different, you can recalculate what your numbers are. If you provide fewer paid time off hours, then you're going to have more than 1760 hours. And if you are a very generous institution, then you'll have less than 1760 hours. But it's your decision to make, and there should be sufficient information in the book so you can make those adjustments.
Okay, well, that's all the questions we have.
Well, we have one more very important piece of information for everyone, and that is the book is available now in the APPA bookstore. There's two ways of getting it. The digital is available immediately, and the print edition should be available shortly, and you can get a nice discount. I can't remember what the % discount is. Steve's listening, he might jump in, by using either one of those two codes, depending on which one you want. The discount is available until April 30th, so don't waste any time and place your order for either the print or the digital version.
Okay, well, that's about all the time that we have today. I want to thank Ted and Tom for taking the time to put this together for us. And as always, to our attendees, thank you so much for taking time out of your extremely busy schedules to be with us. So until next time, be safe, stay healthy, and be kind to one another. Thank you so much. Oops, we have one more question coming in, guys.
Okay.
Okay. If you have a district energy system with a central heating and cooling plant, do you include these employees in the staffing calculations?
No, we've been toying with staffing for a central utility plant for a long time and still haven't found the necessary resources to do it. But we haven't forgotten.
And Ted, we have a request for you to go back one slide so they can get the discount codes.
Oh, I'm sure Steve wants them to get the discount code. He wants them to sell the book.
And I will also include this information in the follow-up email that everyone will get tomorrow as well. Okay, well, at that moment, we'll go ahead and say thank you again. And I want everybody to have a great rest of the day and weekend. So until next time, bye.
Thanks, Billy.
Take care. Thank you, Bill.